Who are you when no one is watching? What decisions are you making when the world isn't applauding? What energy do you step into the moment you open your eyes in the morning? Because every single day, whether consciously or unconsciously, you are casting a vote for the person you are becoming. Most people wake up and immediately recall their problems, their limitations, their stress. That memory-based identity becomes the lens through which they make every choice. They think they're making decisions, but they're really just repeating. Repeating emotions, thoughts, and behaviors hardwired from the past. The same thoughts lead to the same choices. The same choices lead to the same behaviors. The same behaviors create the same experiences. And those experiences reinforce the same identity. That is how the past becomes the future. But what if you chose differently? What if you became so conscious of your inner world that you refuse to let your past dictate who you are today? What if your choices stopped being reactions and started being creations? Discipline is not a tool of control. It is the compass of transformation. Discipline is the act of consistently choosing who you intend to be over who you've been conditioned to be. The moment you start aligning your daily decisions with the vision of your future self, you are no longer a prisoner of your past. You begin to operate from a different level of mind, and the brain doesn't know the difference between a deeply imagined future and a remembered past. When you rehearse a future scenario with such clarity, such emotional intensity, your brain begins to physically rewire. New synaptic connections form, neural pathways strengthen. You're not daydreaming. You're biologically preparing. Now, understand this. Change is not comfortable. Discipline requires energy. Why? Because your body has become addicted to the chemicals of your old self. When you say no to the craving, no to the story, no to the easy escape, your body protests. That's not weakness, that's withdrawal. You are detaching from an outdated identity, and every time you override it, you are signaling to your biology, we're not that anymore. That's why the smallest act of discipline carries so much power. Waking up early, going for a walk when your body resists, choosing a nourishing meal over a numbing one, saying yes to focus instead of distraction, these are not minor acts. These are quantum choices. They send ripples through your nervous system. They shift your frequency. They shape your electromagnetic field. Your choices, consistent, intentional, conscious, are collapsing potential realities into one. The reality of your empowered self. The truth is, the future is not something that happens to you. It's something you design, one decision at a time. Every moment, you're either reinforcing the architecture of your old self or constructing the blueprint of your future. So if your vision is to become someone who is calm under pressure, who radiates strength, who leads, who creates, who loves deeply, then the question becomes, what does that version of me choose today? Not think about, not wish for, choose. Because thoughts are electric, emotions are magnetic, and your actions are the carrier wave. The more coherent they become, the faster your life begins to reorganize. You are not fated to live a life that reflects who you were. You are biologically, energetically, spiritually wired to evolve, and evolution is not a leap. It's a decision, one made over and over again until it becomes automatic, until your identity catches up to your vision. So understand, there is no future self waiting to save you. There is only a series of aligned decisions that birth that future self into being. Every day, every choice, every moment is sacred, not because it's easy, but because it's creative. Discipline is simply remembering who you are becoming and honoring that vision in every choice you make today. Someone new, you have to go beyond changing what you do. You have to change what you believe, how you think, and what patterns your brain has been unconsciously rehearsing for years. The brain is not fixed. It's not static. It's plastic, meaning it's malleable, it changes, it evolves. Every thought you have, every emotion you feel, every choice you make either reinforces an old circuit or begins the process of creating a new one. That's not philosophy, that's neuroscience. Think about it. The mind is what the brain does. So when your mind is obsessively focused on lack, fear, guilt, or shame, your brain is memorizing those thoughts and emotions. It's firing and wiring the same neurons over and over again until those patterns become your baseline. You no longer have to think negatively, your brain does it automatically. You no longer choose stress, your body becomes addicted to the chemicals of cortisol, and it searches for reasons to stay in survival mode. And here's the kicker. The body learns the emotional state better than the mind. You can say affirmations all day long. You can visualize your goals. But if your body is still conditioned to the energy of your past, your behaviors will keep looping in the same predictable patterns. That's why change feels so hard. You're not just making a new choice, you're going against decades of neurological conditioning. To truly shift, you must become greater than your environment, greater than your body, greater than time. You must become conscious of the unconscious. You must bring awareness to the automatic programs running in the background, the ones that tell you, I can't. I'm not enough. Nothing ever changes. These aren't just thoughts. They're codes, programs, and you've been running them so long, you forgot they were optional. But here's where transformation begins, in the present moment, because it's in the now that you can observe the pattern instead of being it. When you become the witness, when you see the thought, catch the reaction, interrupt the emotion, you create space. And in that space, you reclaim choice. In that space, you can decide to respond as your future self, not as your programmed past. Neurons that fire together wire together. So when you repeatedly focus your attention on elevated emotions, gratitude, compassion, joy, inspiration, and you marry those emotions with a clear intention of who you want to become, you begin to forge a new mind. You don't just think differently, you become different. And as your brain starts to rewire, your behavior begins to follow. You're no longer reacting from an old identity. You're creating from a new one. That's why meditation isn't a routine, it's a rehearsal. It's where you go to disconnect from the outer world, the familiar body, the predictable timeline. You enter the field of possibility and begin training your brain and body to live in alignment with a future that hasn't happened yet, but that your biology begins to recognize as real. And as that wiring becomes more coherent, your habits begin to shift. Not from force, not from struggle, but because the inner architecture has changed. It's like upgrading the operating system. The old programs don't run the same way anymore. The triggers lose their power. The compulsions dissolve. What once felt like resistance begins to feel like release, and you're not trying to behave differently, you are different, because when you rewire the brain, you reset the behavior. When you shift your internal world, the external must follow. The habits you couldn't break, the cycles you couldn't escape, the goals you kept chasing, they begin to transform not because you pushed harder, but because you aligned deeper. This is how personal change becomes permanent, not through motivation alone, but through neurological evolution, through intention, through repetition, through emotional alignment with a future you believe in so deeply that your brain starts to live there before your life does. Most people think of addiction only in terms of substances, alcohol, sugar, nicotine, drugs, but the most powerful and pervasive addictions we live with are emotional, anger, guilt, shame, anxiety. Victimhood, these aren't just fleeting feelings. They're deeply ingrained emotional states that the body learns to crave. And like any addiction, the longer you feed them, the more they control your behavior, your chemistry, and your destiny. When you wake up in the morning, what is the first feeling that rises? Is it excitement, purpose, peace, or is it stress, dread, resentment, or overwhelm? Because if you immediately recall all the things that are wrong, the bills, the deadlines, the arguments, the memories, then your body isn't in the present. It's reliving the past, and the moment you remember those situations, you also re-experience the emotions tied to them. Your heart rate increases, your brain floods your system with the same stress chemicals. You return to a familiar emotional baseline, even if you hate how it feels. That's the addiction. Every time you fire the same emotional pattern, your brain reinforces it. And when you repeat that emotion long enough, your body becomes the subconscious mind. It starts reacting before your thoughts even catch up. You don't need a reason to feel sad, angry, or afraid. You've conditioned yourself into being it. The emotion has become your personality, and that's the trap. You believe it's who you are, but it's who you've practiced being. Let's be clear, emotions are not the enemy, they are feedback. But when they become chronic, when you live in them for years, they stop being messages and become identities. That's when you lose your power. You see, the body becomes addicted to the chemicals of survival. Cortisol, adrenaline, norepinephrine, these are powerful substances that give you a rush. And when you live in fight or flight long enough, the body starts searching for problems just to keep that chemistry going. You become addicted to the experience of suffering, not because it feels good, but because it feels familiar, and the familiar is safe even when it's painful. Breaking this cycle doesn't happen by accident. It happens through conscious interruption. You have to become aware of your emotional signatures, the ones that show up before you make the same mistake, fall into the same argument, sabotage the same goal. You have to recognize the moment the wave begins to rise and then choose not to ride it. That takes more than discipline. It takes energy, because the moment you go against the emotional addiction, your body will protest. It will tell you it's not safe. It will scream for the drama, the reaction, the story. It will tempt you to text the person, argue your limitations, spiral into the old narrative. That resistance is not weakness. It is withdrawal. It is the body begging you to go back to the old identity so it can get its chemical fix. But here's the breakthrough. Every time you pause instead of react, every time you breathe instead of spiral, every time you choose a higher emotion instead of the familiar one, you weaken the emotional memory. You signal to your body that a new pattern is forming, a new chemical state is possible, a new identity is being born, and as you begin to elevate your emotional state even slightly, you shift your frequency. You shift your perception. You begin to feel emotions like gratitude, inspiration, love, and joy, not as temporary spikes, but as new normals. The brain rewires to match the new internal chemistry. The body adjusts. The field around you shifts. You are no longer a victim of your past, you are the architect of your future. This isn't suppression. This is transmutation. You're not denying what you feel, you're deciding whether that feeling deserves to run your life. Because feelings are powerful, but they are not facts. They are chemical signals that can be changed, rewritten, repatterned. When you understand that emotions are feedback loops wired through repetition, and that you have the capacity to interrupt and redirect those loops, you realize the chains were never locked. You were just rehearsing the pain. And the more you feel something new, the more you become someone new. But most people run from it. They reach for distraction the moment discomfort arises: the phone, the food, the scrolling, the noise. Because sitting still in the unfamiliar is terrifying when all your life you've been taught to equate safety with certainty and peace with pleasure. Yet real transformation doesn't come wrapped in comfort. It doesn't arrive gently. It breaks you open, exposes your patterns, and brings you face to face with the very emotions you've spent a lifetime avoiding. The discomfort isn't there to harm you, it's there to reveal you. Because growth doesn't happen when you feel good. It happens when you feel raw, uncertain, vulnerable, and choose to stay awake inside that space. The human nervous system is designed for adaptation. But adaptation only happens when the current state is disrupted, when the identity you've rehearsed can no longer hold the weight of the person you're becoming. When you sit with discomfort, you're not just resisting an old habit, you're rewiring a survival program. A neurological and biochemical pattern that has lived in your body for years. Your past conditioning will scream for relief. It will pull every trick it knows to get you to retreat. Mental chatter, emotional spirals, stories of self, doubt, memories of failure. That's not truth. That's your body asking for the familiar. That's withdrawal from your former self. Understand something very clearly. When you interrupt the signal, when you refuse to numb the pain or escape the feeling, you are disrupting the pattern. You are overriding the default. You are sending a new message to your nervous system that we no longer fear this discomfort because we understand what it actually is. It is energy. Raw, unrefined, often chaotic energy that has been trapped in the system, repeating itself because it was never given permission to move through. When you sit with it, really sit without judgment, without repression, without escape, you begin to metabolize it. You start converting that emotional weight into fuel for expansion. This is why discomfort is sacred. It is not a punishment, it is preparation. It is the shaking loose of what no longer serves, what no longer fits, what no longer aligns with your future. And only those who are willing to be uncomfortable long enough to let go of the old wiring will ever build something new. Every time you meditate and meet stillness, and it feels like agitation, restlessness, or panic, that is the invitation. Every time you pursue a dream and resistance floods your system, that is the invitation. Every time you want to speak the truth and your throat tightens, your heart races, your hands sweat, that is the invitation. And most turn away too soon. They tap out right before the breakthrough, because the old mind, the old identity, the old energetic patterns beg to be kept alive, not because they're right, because they're familiar. And your biology will always choose the known over the unknown, until you choose differently. So when you feel discomfort rising, when your body urges you to stop, when your mind pleads to quit, recognize the moment. This is the threshold, this is the doorway, this is the heat that forges the next version of you. Sit in it, breathe into it, not because it's easy, because it's necessary, because the moment you stay when you would have left. The moment you breathe when you would have reacted. The moment you lean in when every cell screams to lean out. You claim power over your biology. You prove to your subconscious that you are no longer the program. You are the creator, and in that fire the old identity begins to burn away. The stories begin to dissolve. The need for external validation weakens, and what emerges is not a perfect version of you, but a real one. One that is forged in the silence, in the stillness, in the discomfort that most are too afraid to face. In the quantum field, everything is energy, everything. Your thoughts, your emotions, your intentions, they aren't just inside your head or locked within your chest. They radiate beyond your skin. They broadcast frequencies. They interact with the field of infinite possibility that surrounds you at every moment. And in that field, you don't attract what you want. You attract what you are. This is the mirror. The quantum mirror doesn't respond to your desires. It responds to your vibration. It reflects back the signal you consistently emit, whether consciously or unconsciously. That's why affirmations without coherence fall flat. That's why vision boards without inner alignment feel hollow. You can speak of abundance, but if your body is addicted to fear, if your mind is wired for lack, then your signal is not abundance, it's desperation. The field doesn't hear your words, it reads your energy. You attract not from what you think you deserve, but from what you believe you are. So when life seems to echo pain, limitation, rejection, stagnation, it's not punishing you. It's showing you the pattern you're unconsciously projecting. It's reflecting the identity you're rehearsing. It's the mirror saying, this is your frequency right now. Not to shame you, not to trap you, but to awaken you. Because the moment you shift the signal, the reflection must change. Everything in your life, the people you meet, the opportunities you encounter, the obstacles you face, is a perfect match to your current energetic signature. That may be hard to hear, but it's also the greatest liberation, because it means the power was never outside of you. You don't have to chase your future. You have to become it, and becoming begins with coherence. When your thoughts align with your intentions, when your emotions match the frequency of your vision, when your actions echo your future instead of your past, you move from fragmentation into wholeness. And wholeness has a frequency. It's not a performance. It's not a mask. It's a state of being, and the field responds to states of being. So if you want love, you must become love, not seek it, generate it. In your breath, in your stillness, in your interactions. If you want freedom, you must stop rehearsing your limitations. Stop identifying with your old wounds. Stop bonding with others through shared pain. Begin cultivating the feeling of freedom before your external world gives you a reason to, because that's how you collapse time, by emotionally living in the future before it arrives. When you enter that level of alignment, the mirror becomes magnetic. You no longer need to force, beg, or manipulate reality. You emit the frequency of what you've already become, and the universe organizes itself to reflect that back to you in ways your logical mind could never predict. That's not magic, that's resonance. The field doesn't respond to your goals, it responds to your coherence. It listens to your chemistry, your thoughts, your habitual emotions. So, when you continuously wake up and embody your vision not just mentally but emotionally, physiologically your entire being sends out a new electromagnetic signature. And the moment that signal is stronger than the pull of your past, change begins. You start meeting people who mirror your evolution instead of your wounds. You walk into rooms and attract opportunities that match your clarity, not your confusion. The delays dissolve. The resistance weakens. Not because life suddenly got easier, but because you stopped vibrating at the frequency of struggle. This is the quantum mirror. It reflects not what's out there, but what's in here, and every moment is an invitation to recalibrate. To choose a new frequency, to send out a new signal. You are not here to beg for change. You are here to be the change. You are not waiting for life to deliver something different. Life is waiting for you to broadcast something different. Because when you change your energy, you change your experience. When you elevate your internal state, the external world reorganizes in response. The field is listening. The mirror is always on.